Hey developers, so in this video I wanted to talk about Markdown and how to use it. So we'll go through what Markdown is, the basics of using Markdown syntax, and why you should know it as a developer. So getting started, what is Markdown or the Markdown language? So Markdown is a language to format text and elements for plain text documents. You can usually see this in the format of .md files or Markdown files. So they're usually used for README files, such as on GitHub, or some blog sites format their blogs using Markdown. Or applications such as the one I'm using now, Notion, also writes everything down as Markdown. So it's a common format to be writing as developers, so you should know about it. And that's one of the benefits here of using Markdown, because in GitHub, it's widely used in GitHub, and GitHub is used by developers a lot. So other reasons is it's easy to read and write, and formatting text makes it more presentable and easier to read for other people. You can bold text, make it italic, you can put code snippets, and a lot more things you can do. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at how to start writing Markdown and the basic syntax. So inside the code editor now, I'm just going to create a simple file called readme, and I'm going to put the extension of MD for Markdown. And just for now, I'm going to write some basic texts. Let's see. I'll just write basic text. And to actually preview this on what it's going to look like on GitHub, that's what I'm going to focus on, because it's where you'll see it most as a developer. So we can use an extension for this, and you can install it if you go to the extensions and type in Markdown Preview. The one I have installed right now is called this one, Markdown Preview GitHub Styling. So there might be other extensions, but this is the one I've used and it works quite well. So if you install that one, after that, all you can do is just open up your file tree and right click on the readme.md, open preview, and you should be able to get a preview of what it would look like, what the Markdown will look like when it's on GitHub itself. So I'm just going to split this into two panes now. So the first thing we're going to look at is using headers in Markdown. Now with headers, there are different hierarchies of headers, similar to HTML, where we have H1 to H6. We can do the same thing in Markdown right here, and this is done with using hashtags for headers. So if I do a hashtag here and a space, I'm gonna do heading 1. So this is the first level heading, and if I go 2 hashtags and I do heading 2, you can see that it's a little bit smaller than the first heading right there. So as you keep adding more hashtags, the headings will get smaller. So think of it as, in HTML, this is a H1, and so on and so forth. So if we go 3 hashtags, we do heading 3, and I think it goes all the way down to H6, or the 6th level of heading. And there we go. So that's about it for the heading. Pretty simple stuff there. The next thing I wanted to talk about is actually doing emphasis, so bold and italic. So let's say this is some normal text, and I wanted to have one that's bold. So this is bold text, and this is italic text here. Text. Okay, so to make this bold in Markdown, all we need to do is put a asterisk like this, and one over here as well. Sorry, I meant double asterisk for bold, just like that, and the text becomes bold right there. And so to make it italic, all we can do is just put a double underscore here and a double underscore here as well. Sorry, just one underscore and one underscore there. So that will make it italic right there. So that's about it for the emphasis part. Nothing special there. So just using the asterisk and an underscore for italics. So moving on to lists now. I'm just gonna make this a bit neater. And we do headings here. So one thing I should mention about headings is that they should be in structural order. So for example, getting rid of all this for now. If I have a heading here, let's just say heading 1 again, and I'll do heading 2 and heading 3. So as you can see, there is no really no errors here that VS Code can find. But if I were to remove heading 2, for example, it will throw me an error. Well, not error, but a warning. It will say a heading level should only increment by 1 level at a time, which means it expected a H2, but it got a H3. So it's saying that this heading should be in sequential order in that sense. So I skipped a level by going to H3, and that's not really, I guess, part of a good standard to use from what the VS Code Markdown linter is saying. So just keep that in mind if that happens to you. So I don't think it's a strict rule, but yeah, just something to keep out in mind for VS Code if you see these yellow warning signs right here. So the way to do list now, and I'll just make this bigger. Sorry, this one. Cool. So the way to do lists now, there are a few different ways, but we have unordered and ordered lists, similar to HTML. So sticking with, let's do unordered first. The first way we can do this is with a dash. So we can do list item 1, list item 2, and to do indentations, we can just I can do a tab, and we can a dash list item 2.1. So that's will give it an indentation, as you can see right here. So we can just copy this, and you don't actually have to use a dash for that. Another thing you can do is just do an asterisk like this, and the same thing when you indent it as well. So this gives you the same results. So as far as I know, this is just personal preference of which one you want to do. So in the end, it's up to which one you decide to use. Now another one we can use is ordered list. And in order to do order list, there's also different ways to do this as well. So the first one will be one thing you can do is just to do one list item 1. So to copy this 2, list item 2, then we do 3 dot list item 3, and if you want to do indentations, you can tab, copy this again, and we can do, let's say, so we can do 1 dot to make it the first point of this tabbed one right here, and it's item 3.1. Then we just copy this down and do the same thing. So that's the first way you can do it. Another way is if we just copy this. Maybe I'll just get rid of the first part actually. We can also just, it will work if we make it all ones, but as far as I know, I'm not sure, it doesn't look as structured to me or clean. So I personally prefer to stick with this this format that we removed right here. So those are two ways you can do that. So I'll leave that one in as well. Cool. So moving on, the next thing we can take a look at is images and links. We can look at that next. So we can just do images/links. So with Markdown files, you can embed images and links. So let's start off with links first. And let's say we want to have a link right here to Google. We can do, so the format for this would be this and that. So essentially what it is this is the heading or the text display, and this is the actual link right here. So if we were to link to Google, we would do it like this. So Google, open up the link, and we can do https www.google.com, and that would link us to Google if we clicked it here, right here. So now for images, the same thing goes for images, except the format here would be, let me just clean this up a little bit. I'll do images. Cool. So the format here would be same thing. Similar in HTML, when we do an image, we have a source and alternative text. So this will be the alt, and this would be the source. So let me just get a random image and put it in my file tree. So as you can see here, I now have an images folder with a dog.jpg. So now what we can do here is we can do, as for the alternative text, I'll just say dog picture, and I'm gonna have a link to it, which would be in the images right here, images and dog.jpg, just like that. And that didn't work. Let me take a look at what up. Right, so my bad. For images, the only difference here is that with links, we don't need to have an exclamation mark, but for images we do, like this. That will tell the Markdown to, I guess, embed the image properly. So that about does it for images and links. So the next thing we're going to look at is using block quotes. So we'll just do block quotes. So block quotes, you might not use that often, but they're usually used, I guess, to group together texts, or maybe some important text such as quotes, or something along the lines of that. So for example, you can say, my favorite quotes is, and to do block quotes, all you do is start it off with this angle bracket here. And you can type something in, just say, I don't know what quote is, so I'm just going to quote line 1. And you can also continue it if you keep going like this as well. So that's one large block quote right there. But if I put a space here, then the block quote is going to be spread out because there's a space there. So just keep that in mind. But essentially that's all there is for block quotes. So you might not be using this that often, but also important to keep in mind in case you do decide to use it for important texts. So moving on, the next thing we can do is strike through. Essentially just putting a line through the text. And what you can do here to do that is, let's say, strike this text. And to do that, we can just do actually not sure what this symbol is called, but just the double symbols here. I think it's called a tilde. I can't pronounce it, but so just two of those, and that will give it a line through your text right here as a strike through. So the next thing I want to look at is tables, which will be important for when you say create a table of technologies you've used or something else along those lines. So to do tables now, what we need to do is first define the table headers. So if I go, let's just say header 1, and we separate them by using the pipe symbol, and I can do header 2, and I'll do 3 headers, so header 3 right there. And for the next line, we also need to do dashes, and then separate them pipe tags like that as well. One too many. And do the same thing here. So that will give us our table headers right there. And from there, we can just start to create our columns and information that we want to put in the table. So for the first part, I want to do some content. Content here as well, and content here. So we kind of separate them with the pipes here as well. So content here, pipe, another one, we have another pipe, and another one here. So they're all in their own column. And essentially you keep doing that for each, as many rows as you want. Just like that. So that's about it for tables. So you might use this if you want to do, I don't know, like a technology, like a description, and a link. So that's an example you can do in a README, and we'll look at that more in the next video. So the final thing I want to look at is how to write inline code and code snippets in Markdown, which is going to be very important for us developers as we want to showcase, or maybe I guess show an example of the code in our README files. So inline code first. This one is fairly straightforward. If I want to write, this is a, let's say console.log, right? To make this one an inline code, all we have to do is just put one backtick here and one backtick at the end as well. So once it's covered in backticks, then it becomes an inline code right there. So not that useful on its own, but if we look at now bigger code snippets, so what we can do here is instead of doing one backtick, we can do 3. So 1, 2, 3, and give it spacing 1, 2, 3. So then it becomes one whole big code snippet, right? So if I do just some random code here, for our tests, actually const test equals this is a tests, and we just console.log this out. So that's essentially your code snippet right there. The last thing you can do with this is actually specify what language you want this code snippet to be in. So after the first 3 backticks, you can choose a language. So I'm going to choose JavaScript, and that pretty much adds some syntax highlighting, and also in the preview you can see there's syntax highlighting right here as well. So this is going to be one of the ones that you use a lot as a developer, and just something important to keep in mind there. So one extra thing which you might not use, or you could use, is emojis in your Markdown. So to do this, all you'd have to do is use, you could do inline inline emojis, right? So if I wanted to have one here, I'll do a colon, and already in VS Code it adds some, I guess, IntelliSense or to show you a list of emojis you can use. So I want to do I can't remember what it's called. Is it called an anchor? I'll just do anchor, that's alright. So I can just do anchor there. Press enter, and that will be an emoji right here, which shows up here. So if you want to make your Markdown a bit more flashy, then emojis are something you can do right here. So I'll put a link to all this in the description below and a list of emojis you can use. But that does it for the basics of Markdown. So all of this is what you need to know to essentially make a good README for your projects as a developer and in your README. So in the next video, we're going to talk about how to make a good README using these Markdown syntax basics that we've learned in this video. So if you like this video or have any other ideas, let me know in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.